Hello, friend. Welcome to Fat Loss Foundations. This is going to be a quick course all about calories and macronutrients. A little bit about me in case you don't know me. I am a mom, a wife. I was an athlete growing up. My business is called Reach Fitness. I'm a kettlebell coach first and a nutrition coach second. I was certified by Precision Nutrition to coach my clients in nutrition because I know that a lot of people start working out because they want fat loss and they want aesthetic goals, which is great. And fitness can get you part of the way there. But most of the time, if we're seeking body recomposition or fat loss, we really have to pay attention to our nutrition to get ourselves all the way to the goals that we're seeking in the first place. So I became certified as a personal trainer in 2015 and then precision nutrition certified in 2018. Okay, so in our class today, we're going to cover calories, what they are, macronutrients, what they are. We're going to talk about the power of protein, and we're also going to learn about the role of our metabolism in all of this. What we're not going to cover is how to track macros, what your specific macros will be, fitness, and everything else. All right, so speaking about calories first, calories are just a unit of energy assigned to food. So when we say calories, we also mean energy going into your body. We take in energy in the form of food. Every food has calories assigned to it. Some foods are going to be higher in calories and some foods are going to be lower in calories. For instance, a tablespoon of olive oil is 120 calories. So it's very energy dense, calorie dense for a very small amount of food. On the flip side, a head of cabbage is very few calories for a lot of food. So a head of cabbage is about 10 calories. So that's visually, and it fills up your belly, a lot of food for few calories. You can find calories on nutrition labels. If the food that you're eating doesn't have a nutrition label, you can always Google how many calories are in something like an apple or a cheeseburger. You can also use a calorie tracking app like MyFitnessPal, plug in what you're eating and get a pretty good guess on how many calories are in that food. Everything's a guess. It's an educated guess. Nothing is, right on the money, but we can get pretty close, especially if we're consistently paying attention. So if we are in a calorie or an energy balance, that means that we're taking in about the same amount of energy as what our body needs to use throughout the day for all the things. So growing our hair, breathing, beating our heart, like all the normal body functions that we don't even think about. On top of that, running errands, working out, cooking dinner, all the things that we do that expend energy and calories. So if we're in a calorie balance, that means we're taking in the same amount of calories as what our body needs to move through the day. So that would be like, we're not gaining weight, we're losing weight, we're in sort of a calorie balance. If we want to lose weight, then we need to be in a calorie deficit. That means over time, we're taking in fewer calories per day than what our body needs to power us through the day. So we need to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. If we're gaining weight or if we want to gain weight, that means we are in or need to be in a calorie surplus. So we're taking in more calories than what our body needs to stay the same. So in order to lose or gain a pound of weight, we need to be in some sort of like deficit to lose weight, surplus to gain weight. And it takes about 3,500 calories to gain a pound or to lose a pound. So if you stretch that out over the course of a week, say you want to be losing weight and you want to lose about a pound a week, which by the way, I don't recommend for most women. For men, that's probably fine. But for just the sake of argument, if you want to lose a pound, you're going to have to be in a calorie deficit of about 500 calories per day. So if you need about 2,000 calories per day to stay the same, then you would want to drop down to 1,500 calories per day as your intake in order to be in a 500 calorie deficit each day for 7 days. That means that if you stayed consistent and everything's working as it should, you should have lost 1 pound. So that's just kind of big picture, breaking it down. Not saying that's what you need to do, but that is one strategy. Calorie tracking, so keeping track of the calories and the energy that we're taking in, is a really good way to promote weight loss. So if we're keeping track of what's going in and we know ish what our body needs, then we can manipulate the calories going in to help us with weight loss. Tracking calories, in my opinion, is not the best method for fat loss, right? So it's a good method for weight loss, but not a great method for fat loss. And in the next slide, I'm going to tell you about the difference between weight loss and fat loss. So tracking calories is a great tool to help us reach our goals. It's one technique that you could use to understand nutrition better as a whole. Even for someone that's just like trying to eat healthier and have a healthier body, tracking calories and what's going in is a really great tool. It can be a very responsible way to track what we're eating, and it can be very effective. Something that tracking calories isn't is it's not something you have to do forever. It's not automatically an obsessive thing, but it can become that for certain people. It's not necessary to track calories in order to lose weight, but I will say that any diet that you do, whether it's intermittent fasting or the ketogenic diet or Optavia or whatever, Weight Watchers, they're all just different strategies of getting someone into a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. So if you're intermittent fasting, that means that you're eating, fewer calories in a shorter window of time. If you're doing Optavia, they're sending you certain meals and bars to try to achieve a calorie deficit. It's all different ways of doing the same thing, getting into a calorie deficit so that you can lose weight. Okay, so the difference between weight loss and fat loss, I'll explain what I mean. So weight loss is going to be you're in an energy deficit so that you can lose weight. A lot of times, you've probably seen this and maybe you've experienced it yourself. Someone loses weight or you lose weight, your shape stays the same. It just gets a little bit smaller, right? That's fine. And that's normal when we're in a calorie deficit. What's happening is your body is relying on energy stores, whether that's fat or muscle, in order to power you through what you need to do during the day. So your body is going to go for whatever's readily available, your fat stores and your muscle stores, to expend that for energy, to waste it for energy. When we're talking about fat loss, we're trying to manipulate your calories and macronutrients so that your body uses more of the fat stores for energy rather than the muscle. And there's certain ways that we can do this, but it's never 100%. It's never perfect. When we lose weight, when the scale drops 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 20 pounds, most of the time there is going to be some muscle loss as well. But our hope is that we minimize the muscle loss and maximize the fat loss by manipulating your calories and macronutrients in a specific way so that you're not losing weight too fast. You're not losing a lot of muscle in the process. We want to keep muscle on our body. As we get older, we are going to lose muscle naturally, but that's not a good thing. And we want to do as much as we can to keep as much muscle on our body as possible for as long as possible. So fat loss is the goal, not just weight loss. I hope I made that clear. All right, so macronutrients. What in the heck is a macronutrient? Okay, so if calories are like a big picture, the unit of energy assigned to food, macronutrients are taking a closer look at the composition of that calorie. So what is that calorie made up of? There's 3 main macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Carbohydrates and protein both have 4 calories per gram weight. Fat has 9 calories per gram weight. So what that means is our carbohydrates and our protein basically our fats are going to add up a lot faster in terms of calories than our carbohydrates and protein. So we can eat a lot less fat and a lot more carbohydrates and protein to maximize the amount of calories, maximize the amount of food that we're eating for that calorie value. So we need everything, carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We need to be eating it all. It can all be healthy. It can all be unhealthy depending on the portions and the dosage and everything. So a lot of people don't know the difference between carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and that's totally fine. A lot of foods are a combination of all three. So I think that's what makes it tricky. In this Venn diagram, we can see carbohydrates are going to be breads, whole grains, oatmeal, cereal, fruits, vegetables. Those all fall in the carbohydrate category. Proteins are going to be animal meats, some dairy, protein supplements. A lot of foods randomly have some protein in them, but the foods that are like primarily protein are going to be mostly animal meat. And then fats are going to be avocados, cooking oil, nuts, coconut. Those are our fat sources. Obviously, I mentioned before, a lot of foods are all of the macronutrients, and some of them are really a combination of two. So in this Venn diagram, I show that beans are a good example of something that's both a carbohydrate and a protein. A lot of people think like, oh, I'll add beans to this quinoa bowl to get more protein. And there is some protein in beans, but actually it's more of a carbohydrate than a protein. So just taking a look at food labels and really understanding what's what is going to be super valuable when you're trying to manipulate your calories and your macronutrients for your goals. Things like eggs and dairy are a good example of something that has protein and fat in it. And then a lot of foods, like I said, have everything. So especially foods that are like highly processed, ultra processed, think about like a donut or cake. It's going to have carbohydrates, fat, maybe some protein in it, probably not a lot of protein in it. The most unhealthy foods are probably just going to be mostly carbohydrates and fat and not a lot of redeeming qualities or healthy nutrients in them. So that's macronutrients. If you have questions on the composition of the calories and what you're eating, really just start taking a look at the ingredients that you're putting into your food. So I have a thing of Skippy right here in my hand. It's probably super tiny for you to look at. Nut butter is another one that I think people are like, oh, I had some protein today because I had some peanut butter. There is 16 grams of fat in one serving. So one serving is 2 tablespoons, 16 grams of fat, 6 grams of carbohydrates, and 7 grams of protein. So I mentioned before that carbohydrates and protein have 4 calories per gram, and our fat has 9 calories per gram. So our protein grams at 7 times 4 is about 28. So 28 calories are from the protein. And then I can't do math that well, but 16 grams of fat times 9 calories per gram. 144 of the 190 calories from this peanut butter serving are fat calories. So really, nut butter is mostly in the fat category of macronutrient, and it has a little bit of protein and a little bit of carbohydrates as well, but it's mostly a fat. So it's good for you to be aware of that, and it just helps inform your food choices as you go through this process of learning more about macronutrients. Tracking macronutrients is a better system for fat loss because it's not just taking calories into consideration, it's also including the importance of protein, which is essential for fat loss, aka body recomposition, aka keeping the muscle that we have on our body and primarily losing fat. So tracking macros is a superior approach to just tracking calories. Okay, let's talk about your metabolism. So some people think that their metabolism is broken or they have bad metabolism or whatever. So our metabolism adapts and adjusts based on our actions, based on what we're doing with our body, to our body, our past, our present, etc. So there are certain things that we can't control, and there are certain things that we can control. So we can't control how old we are, our sex, and we can't control our genetics, like our body shape. We can control the muscle that we have on our body. We can add muscle to our body. We can allow muscle to waste off of our body. So we do have some control over our muscle mass. We can control our activity level. So how much we're moving throughout the day, kind of like our lifestyle. We can control the type of workouts that we're doing and the intensity that we're using, and we can control our food choices. So these items in the column on the right are all things that we can think about to increase our metabolism, to adjust our metabolism to work more in our favor and less against us. The ultimate fat loss combination is going to be being in a calorie deficit, eating adequate protein, and strength training in order to increase our muscle mass. The more muscle we have on our body, the more calories we can get away with eating and not gain weight. So having more muscle on your body, being more active, choosing the right type of strength training workouts to really add muscle to your frame, and then making better food choices. These are all going to be things that can improve our metabolism so that it adjusts in our favor. Okay, so now we're going to talk a lot about protein. So again, it's one of the three main macronutrients. It's found primarily in animal meat, beans, nuts, seeds, dairy products, protein supplements. Protein is very important because when we're trying to lose fat, the protein that we eat is keeping us full for longer. So when we're trying to purposely reduce the amount of calories that we're eating every day, our body's not going to be super happy. We're going to be more hungry. We like to stay the same. Our body wants to stay the same, and it is difficult. It's stressful on our body to be in a calorie deficit. Eating more protein is one thing that we can do to make our body happy and keep us full and satisfied for longer. So we're not like, when's our next meal? I'm going to eat my arm off. After we work out, which does break down our muscles, that's a natural occurrence, a natural process, eating more protein helps us rebuild and repair our muscle fibers. So it's good for satiation, and it's good for rebuilding the muscle that we work in our workouts. Unlike other things in our body, other macronutrients, carbohydrates, and fat, protein is not stored. So we need to be eating protein throughout the day. Otherwise, it's being excreted, recycled, and it's unusable. So we need to eat protein in the morning, at midday, at the end of the day, constantly if we want these things to happen, our muscle to rebuild, to not be super hungry when we're in a calorie deficit, etc. When we eat food, there's something called a thermic effect. So when we eat food and we digest it, our body temperature raises a little bit, and it is burning calories. It's one of the things that our body does naturally. It's burning some energy, burning some calories just to digest your food. When we're eating protein, the thermic effect of protein is slightly higher. We're burning more calories when we're digesting our protein than other macronutrients. This is not a crazy high difference, but it's just important to mention because it's part of the process. So we need about 0.7 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Asterisk. For someone who's not at their ideal body weight, say you weigh 400 pounds, I would not recommend 400 grams of protein. I would recommend the amount of protein for your goal body weight. So if you're 400 pounds, but you should weigh, a healthier weight would be about 200 pounds, then maybe 200 grams of protein could be a goal that you eventually get to. For a lot of people who've never tracked protein and never paid attention to macronutrients, when they start tracking, they realize that they're only getting like 50, 70, 80 grams of protein per day. So if you fall into that category, a good general amount that I recommend people start with is about 100 grams of protein per day. Once you can get 100 grams of protein per day, then I recommend starting to incrementally increase that number. If you can get 100 grams of protein pretty easily for a week, then take it to 110, then 120, then 130, and just go at a slow pace that works for you. Once you can get 100 grams of protein, it's not that hard to increase it a little bit. Maybe it's just like an extra ounce of chicken in your salad and in your dinner portion, et cetera. So just kind of bumping up what you're already eating to get to whatever your goal amount of protein is. I definitely recommend that we eat protein at every meal. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Because if we don't and we're tracking protein, and let's just say our goal is 150 grams of protein, and you kind of just eat a muffin for breakfast, and then you know, have something quick on the go for lunch. Maybe it's a sandwich and there wasn't very much protein in it. Maybe you get to dinner and you've only had, you know, 30 grams of protein. It's going to be really difficult to eat another 120 grams of protein at dinner and after dinner. So it's really good for a number of reasons to space it out throughout the day. And then just knowing that your leaner cuts of protein or your leaner protein sources are going to be best for a calorie deficit. If we're trying to lose fat, we're bringing our calories down and we're bumping our protein up. So it's going to be a huge service to you if you're doing more chicken and turkey and shrimp and tuna, and leaner cuts of pork and leaner cuts of steak, things like that, because the less fat that's on your meat, the fewer calories you'll be consuming overall. So less sausage and more chicken. Okay, so how do we get, say, 125 grams of protein in our day? So here's kind of a sample menu. Breakfast could be a protein smoothie. So that's going to include maybe some Greek yogurt, a protein supplement, some fruits and vegetables, and maybe 2 hard-boiled eggs on the side. That's easily going to be at least 30 grams of protein. And by the way, I have a free protein smoothie guide with, I believe, 9 different recipes for protein smoothies. They're super delicious and I eat them all the time. I highly recommend getting that free guide and kind of starting there. For lunch, maybe you eat like a buffalo salad, something that you create. It could be tuna, it could be chicken. You add maybe some cottage cheese to it instead of mayonnaise, or just scale back the amount of mayonnaise that you use. Add some super fun like seasonings or onions or radishes or celery or whatever you have to make it taste really good. You could have it on a sandwich, in a wrap, or if you're trying to not use a bunch of calories, you could have it over a salad. So easily another 40 grams of protein. And then for dinner, maybe a beef and broccoli bowl with or without rice. If you're trying to save calories, maybe cauliflower rice, another vegetable in there. And as long as you're eating, you know, maybe 5 ounces of beef, easily another 40 grams of protein. For snacks, adding some maybe like yogurt or cottage cheese or string cheese, something like that, you could easily get another 15 grams of protein. And there you go, 125 grams. As long as you're spacing it out throughout the day, it is really not that challenging, especially when you get used to it. Okay, let me know if you have questions. That's it for this training. Hopefully you got a good idea of the difference between calories and macronutrients, and you're going to start paying more attention to the composition of your calories and trying to eat higher protein and fewer calories for fat loss goals.